So, I mean, the next question we've actually got two questions that came from Ian Johnston at JW Gray, who based in Shetland and Orkney. And he's asked that in light of COVID and a greater shift towards e-commerce, will this increase or decrease competition? And he's also quite interested to know that if that is a case, how do wholesalers maintain a clear USP in a world that's dominated by e-commerce? And I guess this is the same idea that it's kind of, as times move, you want to maintain your identity. So I don't know whether that's something that Kerry, you'd be able to talk about the people you've worked with, please.
Yes, absolutely. And this is something that sort of in light of the COVID situation comes up again and again, not just within sort of the on-trade or the off-trade B2B, but also in things like the on-demand platforms, so Uber Eats, Deliveroo, Snappy Shopper, etc. And I think, absolutely, it's likely to increase the competition amongst the trade shopper. I think, with people moving online, you're a lot closer to doing things like price comparison, as Andy said. You can have 5 browsers open at once and just check and see what's cheapest. And I think with focus on sort of maintaining cash flow, that's going to be something, or one of the drivers that will take customers into the e-commerce platforms and online. We've also got sort of across the on-trade a massive push to get shoppers online, with everyone sort of KPI'd on getting sort of a higher percentage participation, because obviously these wholesalers have got operating costs to manage as well. And I think it's going to be about knowing what the shopper wants and what the shopper needs, and maintaining a really distinctive sort of voice as a wholesaler. So price is definitely going to be something that, it's always present. It's always going to be a very important factor in who trade shoppers are going to shop with. But what else can wholesalers be doing to offer something outside of price that's a definite USP and that will benefit trade shoppers? So we are seeing sort of in light of the reopening and things like keg collections, wholesalers dedicating specific areas on their site to giving really good trade advice and industry advice at what is a very, very difficult time. And we know that trade shoppers are looking for this. This is something they're asking for. This is something they're purposefully seeking out, because I think there's a lot of confusion, no matter what area you're trading in and no matter what industry you're trading in. And it can be quite hard to keep up with. But having that all packaged from, a trusted and reliable source that you can log on and access and digest in your own time is something that's invaluable. And I know the guys at Best Way were very good to sort of go after this from the start and talk about, the best way to adapt business models, the best way to move into different sorts of deliveries, how to help and engage your community during a difficult time. And that was very, very well received within the trade. I think going forward, sort of other things around what can be offered on site in terms of training, in terms of getting sort of more customers in the door safely and out the door by 10 o'clock safely, and how to maximise sort of trading hours. And I guess customer penetration is going to be important as well going forward, alongside things around, overall safety and hygiene.
Excellent. So I think we've got a couple of people want to add something. So Andy, I don't know if you'd like to go first.
Yeah, it's kind of two things. I'd scribble down. It's about adding. I mean, to answer the full question, it's about one. There's definitely going to be more increased competition, because as you said, more people are coming to digital. We've certainly had new registrations, both in customers and then they've registered digitally. So you're going to see that to start with. There's more competition, so you've got to be slick. I think you've got to be easy to use. Definitely one or two of the sites amongst our competitors are not as easy to use. I think ours is, but I guarantee if somebody else was to use it and we did the feedback, people will find issues with that with ours as well. Fully accept that. I think it's about adding value. So we're trying to do some of the news pieces that Kerry's highlighted there. So when the government does publish something, we've tried to push it out both through a MailChimp and actually have a news piece. It's interesting you mentioned Best Way, and I'm not particularly challenging a competitor here, but quickly, when you looked at their COVID site, it was last updated in July. So there's a bit of both here. It's like everything else. If you don't update it, we're all consumers, and yourself when you see that, it just looks like, well, you're not really bothered, are you? You're not bothered about it at all. So I think that's one area that you've got to keep it up to date. And it's kind of a question back to the suppliers on the screen. You're absolutely right there, but do you think you've done enough to help us to communicate some of this? So, I'm aware from Diageo's point of view that there was some, the destroy your beer, et cetera, and there was some detail about uplifting kegs and what was going to be done. But we picked that up predominantly by being registered on the customer channels as if we were a customer, because we were registered for all of those as much as possible to see what's going on. In terms of direct communication from you as a business to us about, right, this was how we need to give you the help, and specific text, for instance, that could go on the website, it hasn't happened. And I'm not singling Diageo out. It hasn't happened from anybody, to be absolutely honest, at all. And I get you could all cut across yourselves here as well to an extent, and ultimately the information is available on gov.co.uk. But specifically, if there's things you need to understand, if we're going to build that and do more with it, then you need to help us to achieve it.
Excellent. So Lottie, have you got anything to add on this?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that's great feedback, I think, from Andy. So I think at the very start of lockdown, it was very difficult to work out what any of us should be doing on anything, and trying not to get on top of each other in our way, and I think we as a business have been very keen to help throughout with all of our customers. But, if there's more we should be doing, let's make sure we have those conversations. But to go back to the question that came in on the point of USP, I'm just really passionate. I've always thought that the challenge as we move online is, like Chris said, identity. Whatever your wholesale business was famous for and brilliant at a depot cash and carry level or at a telesales level, for me, it's just about how do you take that online. It's the same as Ocado, right? Or Waitrose.com. You don't want to have if you're a Waitrose shopper, you are in store, you want a Waitrose experience online. For me, what are the things that you as a wholesale are passionate about delivering in terms of added value for your customers, and then how do you replicate that online? And I think the things Kerry talked about and the things Andy talked about are just right, that those news pieces, if you're really passionate about helping retailers keep on top of trends and news at a cash and carry level, how do you take that online? If you're all about category insights and you deliver a lot of that within your cash and carry business, how do you take that online? For me, it's maintenance of an identity. And yeah, I think us suppliers need to play a big part helping you do that.
And Mushtaq, you got anything to add?
Yeah, just a couple of things on the USP and the competition. I think the key is because everybody will have websites and everybody will have products and prices. And to be honest, I mean, most of the wholesalers sell the same product at a very similar price point, and you can't differentiate that much, like 5p here and there. And sometimes the customers will think that, well, it's not worth the time to even compare for hours just to save £1 on a whole shopping basket, which is £500 or £1,000, right? What is key here in order to have that competitive advantage is make it flexible, make it convenient, right? And when I say convenient, it's the usability and the touched upon and things like that. But
Ease
also,
of shop, isn't it?
yeah, but one thing we noticed, like during this COVID period, we had a lot of new customers coming on board. They were not our customers previously, and they stayed on board. And from our own data analytics point of view, what we found out is basically the stock availability was the key for them. They probably didn't mind the price. There were lots of website publishing products, showing promotions, special deals, things like that. But when you wanted to add it to the basket, some websites or e-commerce sites, they will actually add it to the basket, allow you to check out, only later on to send an email back like, we haven't got half of your items in stock, or have a phone call later on, right? So this is a problem. Whereas if you can have your inventory system and your front-end e-commerce system linked up together, which does live stock check, that means you're never giving wrong information to create a disappointment at a later stage. That is what we call convenience, right? So that is very important. Because price alone doesn't quite cut it in a crisis period like this. Even under normal circumstances, it doesn't quite cut it. That's important. The other thing is like the communication to the with the customers during any kind of things. Like yesterday, the government declared new rules, right? Day before yesterday, there was another thing. So every day, I mean, situation is actually being reviewed by the government, and new whether it's call it full lockdown or partial lockdown or any kind of change of number of bodies who can gather together, all these things are changing by the day. How do we, because it's all over the places, like it's in the TV news, is on the radio or newspaper, but we found out customers do appreciate when as a key supplier to their business, if we also make that extra effort. And it doesn't quite always have to be on your website, because sometimes developing something or putting something through the content management system on your e-commerce portal could be a bit time consuming. So we use all the social media channel as well. So if it is not on your website, but you could actually do a Andy mentioned about MailChimp, yeah, mail out. That's easy and quick. Doesn't take that long to put things together. Put it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, everything. So I think manufacturers or wholesalers, all parties should probably use some of those channels available, because that's easier, quicker, and you don't need to probably put a lot of time and effort behind it to communicate something, a change of a rule or anything like that. That's what I want to add.
Yeah, I'd scribbled availability down here as well, because it is massive, especially if you're a delivered customer. You know, it's fine getting a fantastic price and having 4 websites open and comparing everybody's, but yeah, if you then don't get the product, it's having the confidence that you're going to get the product. And availability certainly, we believe always, but definitely in this last 6 months has been massively important.
Excellent. And Tom, from Mars's perspective, what have you seen?
So what we've seen is one of the big things is about how to maintain those loyal customers. So, you know, we've spoken about getting the new customers and how those customers have signed up, but it's about how do you maintain keeping those as your customer. Some research that we found is that a loyal customer will spend 28 times more than a non-loyal customer. And so by having that, ultimately what it's going to do is, yes, it will increase that competition, but how do you make them loyal? And I think it comes down to a lot of the points that you've just spoken about in terms of the keeping your identity, but it's also the service. And I think it's not just the service of the actual the website and the usability of the website. It's actually the service of your delivered moment as well, because I think that's really key. You know, I think as a consumer, if I get a text from one of the major supermarkets say, hey, your order is going to be half an hour late, great, I can sort out my life around that. Whereas if you don't get that communication, and it's about that moment, showing that retailer that you care, or the operator that you care, I think that is the key bit, which will also drive the USP of the identity of the business.
Excellent. It'd be fascinating to hear from Tanya as well, because I know you've got a different perspective again in your position. Because I guess you're working with different brands across the whole supply chain, aren't you?
Yeah, totally. And I'm really pleased Mushtaq mentioned about being able to order and the stock actually being available, because I think I actually mentioned that in Wholesale News, I think about 3 months ago, has been pretty pivotal. But I think the one thing I did want to pull back on is it is inevitably increasing competition. Clearly, the Shetland Islands is a slightly unique micro market to some extent, but actually it is this piece about platforms. We've recently been commissioned by a client to do a review of wholesale and sort of the state of the technology that wholesale is using, and actually also compare it to other verticals. And it would be fair to say that there are notable exceptions, and you know, I'm not going to name people, but present company included. There are notable exceptions, but we are behind the curve as an industry on technology, and that will inhibit adoption because consumers or B2B customers want a seamless experience. And you know, I accept that wholesalers operate on thin margins, and therefore cost of technology can be challenging. You know, we are an industry that's stretched in that regard compared to others, and we do have big inventories, which makes platforms difficult, but it's not impossible. You know, we used exemplars like Screwfix, ironically, has a massive inventory, and it tailors what it's offering online to the particular customer type who's using the site. It's got videos, it's got demos, it's interactive, it encourages browsing. And also things like Domino's, where you're using multi-platform at different ways. People can WhatsApp and order in, you know, so it's that complete interaction. And really, I think it's important to stress that if we're going to get to the point where there is competition via e-commerce, part of what will drive through that competition and ensure success is having a really robust platform.